To what do you? I mean, let's just go with that. I mean, to what do you? Why? Like, how did this happen?
I think there's multiple. It's very much like the rise of Hitler. There's myriad reasons. It's not just one. But let's kind of break down the main points here. First, you had a very strong, charismatic leader who created a cult. Let's call it what it is. It's a cult. It's a cult.
It does have the characterizations. I mean, in fascism, right? Like, one of the key things that Mussolini came up with that Hitler copied was the idea that it's not a party, it's a movement, and a movement has a cult of action. It's always up to something new. Yeah. So we're invading Greenland. We're doing this, we're doing that, and even if it's better. Mussolini's theory was that people wanted to see their government do something all the time. Better to be doing something wrong or stupid or suicidal than to be doing nothing at all. And I think I'm not sure that's true all the time, but it is true, I think, in a time of crisis when people are feeling unhappy. And for decades, people have been feeling pretty unhappy. About
what though? I don't.
Well, I think here's the thing. Everybody's got a different answer to that question, right? There's the Ted Rall answer to that question, which inevitably is going to involve like income inequality and like our shitty healthcare system, the high cost of housing and college, et cetera, et cetera. But everyone else has their own thing, right? Everyone else has their own story. And it kind of doesn't matter what our specific complaints are. There was not a sense under most presidents up until now that there was anyone in office who was like going to address anyone's problems and try to fix them. It was like sort of like they're just managing, they're just taking over. It's like they're just running it. They're not like trying to change anything. It was like I didn't get the sense that Kamala Harris thought that there was anything particularly wrong with the United States, or that she needed or wanted to fix. You and I have always had this conversation.
Yeah.
President Stantis thinks that there are certain things that are wrong. President Stantis would try to fix those things. That's not true about President Biden. It was not true even really about President Trump in 2017 or about Obama in 2008. I mean, they just wanted to win, and then that's it. And like, they might do some things, but there was no sense of vision, or that's what I mean. Fascist authoritarian movements like Trump's, they have to be seen as addressing problems that their constituents care about: the border, the price of eggs, whatever it is.
Right. And, I think moving forward, we're looking at, and I've said this several times, I know you have too, Ted, that, we're not looking at Hitler, but what we are looking at is Putin. What we are looking at is, what's his name in charge up there in Hungary?
Viktor Orban.
Thank you, Orban. And looking at that, he got rid of the opposition press. He effectively obliterated the opposition party. Didn't fire a single shot. Mm-hmm. There was no Kristallnacht. There was no, Night of the Long Knives. There was none of that. They just, by attrition, by natural forces. So for me, you asked how this happened. You had a charismatic leader with a movement. Let's call it a movement. I call it a cult. Tomato. Okay. Couple that with the fact that the opposition was incredibly weak, mm-hmm. and got weaker of its own volition. I mean, mm-hmm. you had, you didn't just have a senile old man in charge of it. Feeble. Sound familiar, folks? Mr. President Hindenburg. And then in order to be the opposition against the cult of Trump, you had Kamala Harris, who was a catastrophe. I don't care what our friends say. She was by horrible. Any metric, she was a terrible candidate and absolutely the wrong candidate at the time. And in fact, going forward, or rather looking back, reports now about the Biden White House is all these decisions when Biden was deciding whether or not to run, she wasn't consulted once, once.
Apparently he didn't consult with his family either.
Well, apparently he was at a fundraiser somewhere and just said, yeah, crackers. I like crackers. I'm ready for re-election. Crackers.
Yeah, that's apparently it. And apparently all his advisors were like, what?
Yeah, they kind of looked at you and went, what? Wait, what? So, you have twofold. You had a very strong, growing movement from the Republican/Trump side, and an incredibly weak response from the Democrats. I was watching. I mean, I know you don't watch sports, Ted, but I was watching one of the national championship game, and holy cow, they had a guy who was about 70 years old, and I've mentioned this on your show earlier on the TMI show, that I swear he was having an orgasm. It was the President Trump will make us right again. And I have to admit, I have a relative who is saying the exact same stuff. And it's just like, oh my God, you've got to be. I made the mistake several times in my career of putting a lot of faith into an individual to be the, to take the country where I thought it should go. And it was a catastrophe, and allegiance to an individual. George W. Bush.
Oh wow!
The first, I'd say the first 2/3 of his first term, and then I look at my cartoons, and when I get pissed off, and when we break up, man, oh man, do I get pissed!
You are such a girl.